Participants gathered for the 7th Annual Youth Summit here at George Washington University. The goal of the week-long event was for the students and young professionals from the G8 and G20 countries, including Saudi Arabia, to debate and work out their own recommendations for dealing with the world's most pressing problems.
Saudi Arabia is the only Arab countries in the G20. It represents the Middle East beside Turkey. I think we are facing now a lot of challenges, especially after the Arab Spring. We are also facing the nuclear issues, and in the G20 we are trying to help to let the community, the international community, to cooperate with us in order to resolve these kind of issues. I see that Saudi Arabia has a lot of pressure now, or under a lot of pressure, and I think one day we can have a really good, strong network that can reform the global system in terms of economy or environment or even human rights.
Participants didn't officially represent their governments. Nonetheless, each spent months preparing to argue their country's position on a particular issue, such as security, development, the environment, or finance. Some participants represented their country's foreign minister or leader. Hanouf Alhazzaa played the role of her country's head of state.
It's not an easy role for me to be here and actually represent Saudi Arabia, but actually I'm glad that I had the opportunity to be here and send our voice as a Saudi youth, to the international level. So I think it's better for us to have this kind of experience, especially for women, to show the world that King Abdullah really supports women's rights and encourage women to be trained and educate internationally.
Members of the various negotiating committees took seriously the job of coming up with recommendations on pressing international problems.
Well, the two main topics we discussed in development were food security and the effectiveness of aid. These two topics are really important to Saudi. Of course, we have 1.7% of our land is arable for growth, and we agreed upon joining the World Trade Organization to cut our subsidies. So, coming here as a Saudi, my main priority, as is our government's main priority, is to secure food and to secure sustenance for the people. In terms of aid effectiveness, Saudi Arabia is a very underknown top donor in the world. After the United States, we're the second biggest donor in history of modern aid giving. We're the primary donor to Islamic nations, and this aid it's unconditional. Much Western aid comes with conditions and politicalization, whereas Saudi aid tends to be upfront and in cash. So we wanted to make sure that the Saudi voice was known and that we're taking our aid seriously and that we expect other nations to cooperate. If they cannot provide the capital that we can provide, we expect them to cooperate with us in terms of expertise and transfer of knowledge.
By and large, participants took the point of view of their governments, but sometimes they appear to try harder than their own leaders to find agreement with other countries.
That is actually the aim of the summit. The aim of all negotiations is to come up with something common to make sure that all the decisions made are made by the consensus principle. And here, for me, was very important to abstain from our official positions and to speak more from the voice of international youth community. So this was my aim. This is what I've started with in our committee sessions. So I've just said that, okay guys, we can represent our positions as our foreign ministers do, and it will get the same boring negotiations which will end without any consensus, without any agreement. So let's do it another way. Let's be innovative. Let's really try to make a difference. This is why we are here.
At the end of a week of debates, the meeting produced a communiqué with consensus positions all delegations had agreed to. The head of each delegation then signed the document in front of the nearly 200 young people taking part.
I think it's a great start for the youth to start expressing their voices. Like we're now being heard. The communiques that are being produced are going to be sent to officials from all over the world. So that's a great way to have our voice not only heard, but hopefully like our views are going to be implemented. They're going to see the perspective of the youth on issues that face all of us these days.
The cultural experience was amazing. I mean, diversity, we got to know different people from everywhere. We knew things about them that we didn't know, probably habits, probably similarities, probably it was really very a culturally dense experience. Probably it gave us a sense of the college and the college life. I personally had graduated, so I went back into that. But it was an amazing experience.
Reef Al-Awad, who works for a management consulting company in Riyadh, was the main organizer of the Saudi participation at this event.
I've spent a lot of time abroad, and what I notice is that the young Saudis are often underrepresented at the international on the international youth platform. So it's a personal passion of mine to see more Saudis active in the international arena, particularly in diplomacy and international relations.
And how were the 8 participants in the Saudi delegation chosen this year?
It was through a very competitive selection process. We had the online applications that were that were reviewed and shortlisted. The candidates that were shortlisted were later contacted for interviews, and through the interviews, we chose the individuals most fit for each role, and selected them and invited them to come join us here at in DC.
The almost 200 students and young professionals at this year's Youth Summit worked long and hard to produce a consensus statement reflecting the positions of their governments with an added youth perspective. But in addition, the event gave participants valuable experience and a leg up for future careers in international business and diplomacy. Burton Bolag, KSA2, Washington.